Live from the middle of my nicely cleaned, new, fresh, clean kitchen in the middle of Oakland, California, where it's everybody's fault and no one is to blame. It's the Kitchen Poetry Series Kitchen, featuring the Poet Laureate of this kitchen, the Poet Laureate of this life, the Poet Laureate of this laureate, the irrepressible, irreversible, irremovable, irresponsible, iridescent poet Gary Turchin. Yay! Hey! Welcome back to the kitchen. I'm Gary Turchin, the Poet Laureate of this nice, freshly cleaned kitchen. You know, last time we were here, it wasn't as clean as it should have been, and I was embarrassed about that. So today, this time, I've cleaned it. Cleaned myself a time or two since then too. Hope you appreciate that. I'm Gary Turchin. I'm the Poet Laureate. I want you to sit down and relax because I have a really nice poem I want to share with you. I made you a fresh cup of tea over here. Excuse me a minute. You can have this cup of tea. I'll put it over here. Go ahead. Sit down. Relax. Have your feet up and go ahead and just let it in. I want to tell you about tonight's poem. It's called Blinking. And it's really, for me, one of the most important poems I ever wrote for me because it taught me the thing you need to have as a poet is patience. Patience. 30 years ago, I was coming back from Point Reyes, California. The sky was crimson sunset, and I came upon a field of antennas. There must have been dozens and dozens of antennas communicating with all the boats out there on the Pacific Ocean. And on the top of each antenna was a blinking red light. Blinking, blinking, blinking. And the backdrop of the blinking red lights was the crimson red sky. It was a beautiful scene. I stopped, I pulled over, and I took out a pad and pencil, and I wrote the opening stanza to the Blinking poem. And I liked I liked the sound of it. And I went to work to try to create a poem with that. Right afterwards, when I got home, and was unsuccessful. In fact, for months I tried to use it in many different ways, and it never quite worked. In fact, for years, I would come back to it once or twice a year thinking, what do I do with that? What is that about? 9 years later, sitting up in my studio one night, it came to me, and I just started writing it verbatim on a manila envelope, and it came out almost as you're going to hear it now. 9 years. I'm not exaggerating. If you're thinking of writing a poem, if you ever get stuck and you like it, stick with it. Stick with it. Don't give up on it. Don't work it like crazy. It's going to come in its own time. This is my poem. It's called Blinking. Blink, blinkety blink. Blinking red antenna light. Blinking red on red sunset tonight. Blinking for all there is to blink. Blinkety blink, blinkety blink. Blinking for my mother, and for Bayonne, New Jersey, and for Ellis Island, and for Riga, Latvia, where she was in her mother's womb, when the Cossack came and kicked her pregnant belly with his hard leather boot, and she bled for days. And later, she told my often angry mother that she was born midakas, with the anger, because the Cossack's boot, midakas, kicked her in the womb. And blinking for my own midakas self. And blinking for junior high school baseball, and for Michael Wishna, and for the one of us that didn't get to play that day, and for the one of us that didn't make it past 21. And blinking for communal showers and getting pissed on in one by our first baseman who was bigger than me and whose father was in the mafia, and blinking for my own mafia self, and blinking for my sister who is a dancer, who lives in New York, who is a dancer with her 2 sons who aren't yet but might someday be dancers, and her husband who works on Wall Street and isn't a dancer but wishes he were, and blinking for my own dancer self, and blinking for my stupid brother, and for his stupider brother, and for my own stupid self, and blinking for my obnoxious uncle's son who got rich because he wasn't afraid to kick his own father's ass, and blinking for dear Aunt Rose's cancerous breast, and blinking for my own cancerous self, and blinking for sheetrock dust, and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and for polyvinyl chloride, and for all the chloride families, and blinking for my own chloride self, and blinking for my Uncle Moish, and my Grandpa Moish, and for Robin's old dog Moish, and blinking for my own Moish self, and blinking for Mr. B, and Jerry Uden, and corned beef sandwiches, and James J. McFadden Jr., who fixed them for me in our kitchen where he worked for 19 years, and blinking for the Ormont coffee shop, and for the good food fast service sign blinking in the window, and blinking for my father who owned it, and his father who owned it, and for his father's 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 father who owned it, and blinking for my own children's father who owned it for a time, and blinking for my own father self who doesn't own it anymore, and blinking for my own ashes and my own dust, and I don't even own them, and blinking for the chalkboard walls and dentine days, and for the jewels and pockmarks and apocalypse and her tender, tender lips and sweet, sweet body, bespeckled green eyes, and blinking for love, and blinking for leaving, and blinking the pain back into itself so as not to see the blinking, and blinking for this sunset, red on red tonight, blinking for the blinking, red antenna light, blinking for all there is to blink, blinkety blink, blinkety blink, blinkety blink, blinkety, blinkety, blink. That's blinking. This is my nice, clean, fresh kitchen. I'm your nice, clean, fresh poet laureate of this kitchen. I'm proud to have been able to share my blinking poem with you tonight. I look forward to us getting together in this kitchen again for another Kitchen Poetry Series poem. I hope you like the tea. It was organic. And I'll have tea for you next time too, if that's what you like. So come and see us in the kitchen again. Till then, I'll see you in the poetry kitchen of life.